Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Gaming News, where we discuss all things in the gaming industry. And today we are going to be talking a little bit about Outriders. We're going to be talking once again about Activision Blizzard and more developments in that situation. We are going to talk a little bit about Sony and some of the things that they are doing recently. And then finally, we are going to top it off by talking a little bit about Frogwares. So, without further ado, let's get right into our first topic. So, like I mentioned previously, our first topic is going to be about Outriders. Now, recently, we have learned that Outriders is finally going to get that expansion that we've been expecting for a while. Now, Outriders was supposedly the Destiny 2 killer, and it was going to be fun and exciting and had a really interesting storyline. And then the end game was going through expeditions where the harder the content, the more rewards, the more legendaries you could get, and it legitimately feels more like a looter shooter. And a lot of people had different issues with the game throughout its ride, but in this particular case, a lot of people had hoped that with some of the updates and the patches that they have done over the time, it hasn't really brought that many people back as much as people could fly hoped, or people can fly hoped. So, they have finally talked about there is going to be an expansion, and we have more details about that. So first we're looking at a Forbes article by Paul Tassi, who over the course of PAX East has been able to experience a little bit about the expansion, and he goes into a bit of detail. So on the 21st, he said People Can Fly unveiled their long gestating game, Outriders Expansion World Slayer. And he goes to talk about the fact that World Slayer is going to be a paid expansion that will be released on June 30th and was being previewed at PAX. So he talks a little bit about some of the features and things. He's taken a number of different screenshots to include. And if you are interested in more about Outriders and some of the details following that demo, feel free to take a look at this article. It's going to be, of course, in the sources underneath the video. And what I wanted to note is you do not have to be caught up and maxed out within Outriders, the base game, in order to be ready for World Slayer. You can instantly boost any character to level 30 and be able to start the World Slayer campaign from there when it's released. And again, this campaign is not free, but we don't have a price point yet, and you won't be locked out by your level or anything like that. And everything that he saw during PAX East has been promising. And this is actually a good sign, in my opinion, because he does detail some of the things that you can expect to see. IGN also talked a little bit about Outriders World Slayer and some of the things that you can expect from the expansion on June 30th. And in this, the expansion's campaign features new additions to all of the key aspects of Outriders. There are new zones, enemies, and enemy variants, 2 new 5-piece legendary armor sets per class, new multi-class 3-piece legendary armor sets, weapons, and mods. In total, World Slayer adds almost 100 new legendary items across armor, weapons, and mods. And then the writer of this particular article says beyond that is the path to ascension after you finish the base game, I'm assuming. There is a new sort of level track, and it's a long-term progression system. So after hitting level 30, all XP goes towards Ascension, which has 200 points to unlock and has been designed to support hundreds of hours of play, which does lead me to believe that this is actually going to be an exciting and fun DLC to play. Again, it comes out June 30th, although we still do not have a price point, but I'm actually very excited to see that People Can Fly and Square Enix are continuing to work on the game and making sure that it's still a fun and exciting experience for people and hopefully bringing people back into the game. So I can't wait for this to come out. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to get it when it arrives on all platforms that it's available on currently. And it should be a great time. If there's anything truthful about what Paul Tassi has said, as long as those elements transfer over into the retail version properly, as opposed to playing a demo that is too polished and then you receive the actual product on launch and it's nowhere near what the demo was, and that is certainly seen in a lot of different cases. But I have a lot of hopes for Outriders Expansion, June 30th. Hopefully, it's going to be a really good price point, and I just can't wait to see what they've done to the game to make it better. Next up, we are going to talk about Activision Blizzard, and of course, it wouldn't be the Patreon gaming news if we didn't have more information about Activision Blizzard. So, I have a VentureBeat article here that talks about Activision Blizzard ditches investor lawsuit over lack of evidence. Now, this is important because remember, they've already gone through one of the two major lawsuits that they were involved with before, which is the DFEH and the EEOC, and one of those has been resolved, as many of you are well aware, and if you are not, go watch last week's video. But the fact that there is also an investor lawsuit tells a very big tale. So, the Activision Blizzard shed another lawsuit today. A U.S. District Court judge has dismissed the investor lawsuit against the company. And what I wanted to make mention in this was that the Wall Street Journal was the one to originally post this, and unfortunately I am not subscribed to it, so I can't show you the original article. But the Wall Street Journal reported that the Daily Mail's online arm, Mail Online, tried twice to publish a story about a restraining order against Bobby Kotick by his ex-girlfriend. Both times, the story was allegedly squashed at the behest of his then-girlfriend, Meta's COO, Sheryl Sandberg, who threatened the publication's relationship with Facebook. Sandberg denied the allegations to the Wall Street Journal. Now, it does sort of continue forward. There's more information in the Game Industry Biz article that I have here, which is that an ex-girlfriend of Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick obtained a temporary restraining order against him in 2014 after she accused him of harassing her at home. Furthermore, on two occasions when UK tabloid The Daily Mail was preparing to report on that restraining order, Kotick's then-girlfriend, Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg, persuaded the paper not to cover it. The Wall Street Journal reports that happened once at the beginning of her relationship with Kotick in 2016 and once near the end of it in 2019. It goes on to say that the efforts were planned by Kotick, Sandberg, employees of both Facebook and Activision, as well as outside legal and PR advisors. Now, the Wall Street Journal cited people with knowledge of the matter said Kotick's ex-girlfriend from 2014 told people her declaration included exaggerations and falsehoods. That declaration, which is missing from the Los Angeles County Superior Court public case file regarding the restraining order, but a transcript of which was reviewed by the paper, says the woman who broke up with Kotick due to his bullying and controlling behavior, and he responded by showing up to her home uninvited and trying to get in. And that led her to call police. Now, of course, this was happening at the same time as the other lawsuits, although one of them is already supposedly resolved and there is recourse for that, and the other is still ongoing as of this point in time. And there is more information about this particular lawsuit because while they said it was misleading, they didn't go into detail in the other article, and this particular article, I'm assuming, was written a little bit later on, which includes more information. So the main point of the case, which was filed last year, said that between August 4th, 2016 and July 27, 2021, investors were misled because the company didn't inform them about the ongoing investigations by the DFEH and the EEOC, which makes me question a lot of things because generally speaking, at least in Canada, court cases are public record. You can go and look these up. And in this case, I would be surprised that the investors just had zero knowledge of this. It's more likely that they just didn't bother to look at it and the information that was out there. So I'm not 100% certain how I feel about this point, but moving right along. The investor lawsuit described Activision Blizzard as a breeding ground for harassment and discrimination against women, which is hilarious because even there is a pattern certainly at the company that doesn't necessarily make it a breeding ground. It certainly makes it easier for that to spread. Definitely. But it just seems like this is a weird point to sort of put in there, especially when the U.S. District Judge Anderson said that, well, a case argued that certain individuals knew about the investigations, it suffered from a lack of particularity. He added, to the extent plaintiffs allege that defendants must have known sexual harassment and discrimination were endemic by virtue of their respective positions at the company, the first amended complaint does not establish the requisite facts to support such a conclusion. This is interesting for a number of different reasons, some of which I've already mentioned, but if you don't have enough facts to prove your case, of course it's going to be dismissed. There's not enough for it to stand upon. And if there's not enough to really prosecute or come up with any kind of recourse to whatever allegations are being brought forward to the court, they have to dismiss. You have to be able to have enough proof to show that this is truly the case. And if there were already other investigations ongoing, it might have been maybe more difficult to get some of those facts, or those facts are maybe wrapped up in some of those other cases as well. You're talking about multiple pronged attack here in court cases. And often you're looking at a priority system when it comes to multiple court cases. Now, if there is some kind of criminal element, generally speaking, the criminal case has to go through first before any of the civil cases go through. And this is why you have to be mindful of the amount of things that are going on. There was clearly not enough evidence to support the allegations in this particular claim, and so it was really up to the judge to dismiss and say, come back when you have more information, something more to show me. Now, I am not going to sit there and say this is good or bad. We're talking about an issue from many years ago, and I know that the court system can be incredibly slow, but that doesn't mean that some of these things are going to be taken into consideration when there are these bigger court cases that are out there. So I don't know. I'm very curious to see what you guys think if that's going to affect anything. But I also thought it was interesting that at the same time that pieces are being published about Bobby Kotick's relationship and the different allegations there, that Activision Blizzard elects Lulu Cheng Meservey to its board of directors. So, also on the 21st, Call of Duty maker Activision Blizzard announced the election of Lulu Cheng Meservey to its board of directors. And it continues by saying, a number of different things about how it's a privilege to be part of the company, and they look forward to bringing their experiences to the company to prioritize the employees, the shareholders, and the players worldwide. Activision Blizzard's new board developments follow after its failure to comply with a California law which requires it to have at least 3 women board members. It had more than 3 years to fulfill the minimum and blamed its non compliance on Microsoft Activision talks. Wow. You're going to blame the acquisition talks for not filling the slots. There are many businesses that have a requirement of diversity and inclusion. Now, that's not to say every company is like that, but there are certain amounts of inclusion that have to be part of many companies to make sure that companies aren't discriminating against people because of their gender or because of their particular disabilities or whatever it happens to be. And it's interesting to me that there is a law stating that you have to have a certain number, or more likely a certain percentage, of women making up a board of directors. But the fact that Activision Blizzard pushed back and then tried to make an excuse saying that, well, because we were in talks with Microsoft, that it made it harder to really find the right people who would be suitable. Again, I just feel like everything within the Activision Blizzard cases have been completely set up for years. This is not something that just spawned out of nowhere. A lot of these actions were deliberate. This is ridiculous and disgusting, and Bobby Kotick needs to just get the hell out of the gaming industry. Take your goddamn severance package, and we never want to hear from you again because you have been quite literally one of the worst people in the gaming industry. And I'm not saying there aren't other people like him out there, and not even saying that these people may or may not be in the gaming industry as well. But right now, he is the public facing scumbag of the universe, and he needs to be ejected yesterday. Years ago, in fact. I don't care. I'm just tired of seeing more crap come from Activision Blizzard. And like most other people, I just want this to wrap up, for Microsoft to hopefully fix things and to save those IPs and get rid of all of the scummy people along the way. But that's just my opinion. I'm very curious to see what all of you think. Do you agree with me? Do you think that this woman is a good fit? Do we have any reputation of this woman? And maybe do you want to bid on how long this woman is going to last? Because the last few people that joined Blizzard, some of them only lasted 6 months, and then they were like, you know what? Nope, I've seen what's behind the veil, and I want nothing to do with it. So let me know in the comments or let me know in Discord what you think, because I'm very curious to see where you stand on this. Next up, we have information about Sony. Now, there are two separate things that I want to talk about very briefly. And the first is that Sony is reportedly going to put ads in PlayStation games. Now, before you recoil at the title of this article by The Verge, know that the important thing is stated right in the first paragraph, which is Sony is reportedly working to bring advertisements to free-to-play PlayStation games, according to a report by Insider. The ads would appear in games and are meant to give game developers a way to monetize their work and encourage them to continue building free-to-play games. I am actually okay with this. And the reason I'm okay with this is because if you are a free to play game, you have a specific business model that you're following. Free to play games take a lot of time and effort. You can look at something as simple as Neverwinter, the Dungeons and Dragons based MMO that you can grab at any point in time off of Steam or off of the Arc launcher or whatever it's called now, and you can go ahead and play that game completely free. Sure, there are things that you can purchase with real money that will make things easier, but the reality is you don't really need to do that to enjoy the game. It's not the greatest MMO on the planet, certainly, but if you don't have money to invest in other games that are bigger MMOs that have constant content being released, then you could certainly look to free to play games, and they still have to keep their servers and release content and keep the player engagement. So, a lot of the business model for free to play games is to include microtransactions or ads. And if you ever wonder why Raid Shadow Legends is talked about everywhere, it's because it does operate on more of a free to play game market. So, of course, there's going to be microtransactions. Of course, there's going to be ads that are frustrating at times. It doesn't mean you get a free pass to everything. It means that it will be harder to progress if you don't invest money into it. But that doesn't mean you have to either. And so, in order to keep afloat in the gaming industry as a free to play game, it makes sense that Sony would try to make sure that there are in game advertisements to make sure that there is still revenue for those indie companies, because a lot of times it is indie companies that are making these free to play games. Not to say they all are, but a good amount of them are. So I'm curious how you guys feel about this particular thing, because it's interesting. Companies still need to make money, but I'm curious to see how you feel about this particular thing, if maybe there are other business models that they could employ that would feel maybe less scummy. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I'm just curious to see what you guys think on that particular topic. And I'm going to now talk about the second part about Sony, which is this. According to Axios, the headline is Judge says gender discrimination suit against PlayStation is light on facts. And again, this sort of makes me think about Activision Blizzard, but a federal judge dismissed much of a former Sony PlayStation employee's gender discrimination lawsuit against the gaming giant on Thursday, but is giving her an opportunity to make a stronger case. Before I continue, if your case is dismissed because you don't have a lot of facts, often you can take it back to court as long as you have more facts to include. If it's just going to be the same court case, there is no point for it to even cross a judge's desk. So, them saying they're giving her the opportunity to make a stronger case, technically that's already there. But I digress. The problem here is that she was saying that the violations were from laws within the Equal Pay Act. And what they're saying is that this claim is dismissed because the plaintiff merely recited the elements of the claim and did not allege any specific facts. So, for example, she does not describe her work or how her work was substantially equal to the work of any male allegedly paid more than she was. So, clearly, it doesn't sound like she proved that her male counterparts were making more money than her. She's just maybe speculating because it says allegedly. So it makes me consider perhaps there isn't enough information there. But then, secondly, Mayo can continue to sue Sony over 3 claims involving wrongful termination and violation of whistleblower protections, the judge ruled. Now, it's just interesting to me because this case could actually get to be much bigger. If she does have more information and more evidence to prove her case, then it could be a serious blow to Sony. And it will also start to feel like there are bigger issues similar to the Activision Blizzard case, but that doesn't mean that that will happen. It's that this could still become a bigger issue if you can prove that there was a lot of wrongdoing, and if you can say, according to the law, that Sony did not follow the rules and did not pay her fairly. So, again, I'm very curious to see more about this case, or if maybe this person jumped on the bandwagon. I am interested to see where this goes. I'm not sure if this is going to go well or not, but I leave the question up to you. Do you think that these kinds of cases are going to move forward because of what's going on with Activision Blizzard? Or do you think that many more of these cases are going to be dismissed until there is more information and more laws put in place to protect employees of these video gaming giants? And finally, we're going to talk about Frogwares. Now, I'm not going to take a lot of time talking about this because this starts off politically, and I generally don't deal with politics, but unfortunately, this is a situation where politics does intermingle with video games. And Polygon reported on the 18th that Ukraine game developers say they're staying put with the hopes of rebuilding. Now, there are a couple of different game companies that are in the Ukraine or in the surrounding area that are clearly affected by Russia's invasion, and it is making it harder for some of these game developers to keep pushing forward, but some of them are pushing forward regardless of the political situation. So if you want to read the article, again, I will put this in the sources, but I wanted to really just highlight the end of this article where they got a hold of Paul Milewski, who is PR for Frogwares for Sherlock Holmes. And he said that as it stands, Frogwares has no official plans to leave Ukraine. And this is important because The Devil's Daughter just came out on the 7th for the Nintendo Switch. It's ported because obviously that's been out for a long time. People who had Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 in certain instances were also given a free copy of The Devil's Daughter as well. But Paul continued to say that this is where the bulk of our team calls home and where their families are. When peace comes, we will all be needed even more to help rebuild, and the idea of abandoning Ukraine entirely at a time like that is inconceivable. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is, of course, it has to do with a game developer being massively affected by the war. And Game Industry Biz published an article on the 22nd, and that is that Frogwares is pushing back the release of Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 indefinitely on the Xbox One due to the war in the Ukraine. And of course, there is a lot of information as to why they were able to get the port, I believe, for the PlayStation 4, but they're not going to be able to do the Xbox One version again because of resources and because of the dire situation. And a statement from this article is that to say that the war made an impact on us is probably the understatement of the decade. Keeping our personal and mental situation out of this, the war impacted us from a production point of view heavily. From where we stand now, with the resources and manpower we have, we can release the PS4 version of Chapter 1 on April 28th. However, we have to postpone the Xbox One version indefinitely. And the studio is massively disappointed because they invested a lot of time and money in the version, thanked the community for being kind. There are a number of initiatives to help the Ukraine against the war brought on by Russia to hopefully keep these game development studios alive. With this Game Industry Biz article in the description, there is a link for some of the initiatives that you could donate to if you wish. That is entirely up to you. But the situation is rough for a lot of game developers right now on all fronts, from the various lawsuits, from the wars, from the shortage of graphics cards, from the COVID pandemic just continuing to multiply and make things difficult for people. It's chaos out there. And I'd like to finish this by saying that I appreciate every single one of you that are part of the Patreon. Please, please, please pay attention to the world out there. Please be safe. If you can support some of these initiatives and some of these game companies that are truly trying to just stay afloat, that would be absolutely amazing. But regardless, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all of your faces. Don't forget to follow me on all social media, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.